kind of leads to the next question. What is the sort of time frame? And you're talking about a Chinese-based company that would set up, you're probably talking about a prefabrication plant.
Yeah.
That requires scale. Given that there's a downturn in prices and there may be a downturn in construction, how do you persuade them to come in and set up a prefabrication plant if there's not a guarantee of a pipeline of work ahead of them?
I think it answers the question's two parts. If we look at what the demand profile is for residential accommodation in the area, it's outstripping the supply. I mean, we've got a major shortfall at the moment, and it's consistent across the whole of the Auckland region. So from a supply perspective, I don't consider that to be a big concern. If we look at the product range within Housing New Zealand as well in terms of stock, I think there's opportunities to work very closely with that organisation to help support this delivery model. And in respect of the pricing, we are delivering products today into the private sector market, which are retailing at a price which is well in excess of the affordability cap for the very people we're trying to attract into the industry. I've seen products in Guangzhou, I've been to their factories, and they are delivering a product which comes out at $100,000. We're not even close to 5 times that number here in Auckland. The opportunity to potentially flat pack that product and bring it in, obviously it's one area, but what I'd like to see in the short to medium term is actually setting up an operation here, committing to resource delivery, employing local employment, and actually making a shift in the way that we deliver product.
That's good.
Brilliant. So what are your next steps along that path? Because I think everybody around the table would say at a time when we've been told already today that construction shortfalls are blocking meeting the shortfall in housing. We'd want to see that quite quickly. But if it doesn't happen quite quickly, you might find you're at the other end of the housing cycle and your task becomes a lot harder.
You're absolutely right, Magoff, and it will become more difficult as time progresses because the pressure will be on reducing of actual costs. In the short term, as long as we can address the issue of codes, of building codes here locally, as long as we can address the issue of consenting and get those approvals in place, and we're working closely with MIMBI in terms of how we can actually make sure that the product that comes in is fit for purpose and is appropriate. If we can address those big issues, then we could deliver this product short term by bringing it in flat pack. In the medium term, it will require setting up of a factory here, and that factory could deliver a number of component parts, or it could deliver the whole product in a box. And I think that's where we make the paradigm shift. And certainly from a personal perspective, I've been involved in delivering these facilities and these factories in the UK. I've been involved in them with Europe. I've also been involved in delivering them in the Middle East. And there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't deliver a successful proposition here in Auckland.
Thank you. Sounds promising.
It's fairly well known that Chinese companies often do take the labour force with them. Is that an issue here? And clearly the much stricter immigration rules, a la 49,000, is already causing headaches. Would that be an issue?
I think if we wanted to go full scale and deliver at pace, then it would be an issue. If we're talking about bringing in the full supply chain of labour, then I think we'd have a serious issue. What we're looking at, however, is manufacturing these facilities within the factory envelope.
Yep.
That will require some dedicated specialist resource, but I think also the opportunity exists to train local people in that skill set and look at how we migrate and take it over in time.
Win-win. Councillor Walker, Wayne Walker.
I think my question's been answered, but just emphasising that it's that latter comment that I'm certainly supportive of, and I'm sure most of the councillors. The last thing we want is flat pack houses imported directly from China. That would be an absolute tragedy.
Councillor Hulse.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I'd like to see something we've been talking about for a long time actually coming to fruition. We've tried it with Clyde Holland. You know, we sort of pushed that envelope as hard as we could, and we ran up against the big multi-dimensional multi-armed Fletchers et al. You know, we are up against some fairly strong blockages to this. So my question is, how I know this is a finance discussion, so sorry it's not quite the time, but it has been raised. I've got about 3 questions that arise with this. We've got the government promoting UDAs to be set up all over the place, you know, build 2 houses and you need to set up a UDA, which I think is kind of bonkers. I'm very hopeful that Panuku in your new iteration are going to be the oversight group for much of this work that is done in Auckland. So my first question is, are we worried about that? Secondly, you know, we've been saying for the last 5 years, keep the construction pipeline open, help manage the finance that's going to be available in 3 and 4 years' time when the economy cools down, and we will have nailed it. Keep the houses being built as the economy slows down and the government needs to come to the party and hold that pipeline open, and keep training the builders for when we face in the next 8 years the next great big upturn in building. So in what you're proposing, I'm hoping, presuming that those issues are being built in. And finally, just the Deputy Mayor has just been posting on social media over the last 24 hours some fantastic work that he's having a look at, where they're actually 3D printing flat pack buildings in China. So, you know, I mean, the stuff is moving on apace. Hopefully our consenting processes will keep pace. So sorry, 3 quick questions rolled into one, I think.
No, thank you for those questions. With respect to the UDA, obviously we put a joint application from council and we are supportive of that process. The harsh reality is, with the best will in the world, that's at least 3 years away. So yes, we're supporting it, we're behind it, and ultimately we hope we will be at least one of the UDAs within the region. So without any question on that, that's something we are firmly behind. From a practical point of view, we've got to deal with it today, and we have to deal with how we move forward today. With regard to the question over the housing being built, we've got a major problem in Auckland, and we have to find a solution to this. And the solution is not going to exist within the country in the existing procurement and existing supply chain. I've worked very closely with the 2 large organisations, and there isn't the capacity for them to make a step change, a paradigm shift in terms of what we're looking for. I think there's no doubt that we need to work very closely with them, and they could be potentially a partner as we move forward. So I don't see it in isolation, I see it in collaboration. Mm-hmm. And with regard to 3D printing, it's a whole new world out there. The potential opportunity to design these flat pack facilities on a 3D printer is absolutely extraordinary. But we should be embracing every technological advancement that's possible, and we'll certainly be testing that.
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Chair, it's somewhat underwhelming, the lack of support in the budget for exactly the kind of work we're talking about here, because the pipeline needs to be held open, and the only way that pipeline is going to be held open and allow us to build during the troughs is if a government of whatever colour.
Can I just make a quick
that.
comment? It could create its own pipeline.
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't that be good?
Yes.
Right, last question, Councillor Lee. Mike.
Thank you, gentlemen, and congratulations. And congratulations on thinking outside the square and confronting a major problem we have in Auckland and New Zealand, and that is the affordability of infrastructure, not just housing, because construction relates to everything. Roads, bridges, tunnels, curb and channeling, culverts, the whole lot. And we know that there is a monopoly situation in New Zealand, and that prices of construction, of houses, of everything, at 3 to 5 times that of California, and probably double that in New South Wales and Sydney. So good on you, and you'll have my full support. In terms of infrastructure and the Wynyard Quarter, there's a reference to working with Auckland Transport. I have to say, as a former director of Auckland Transport,
the amount of money going into the roadworks down there from Auckland Transport, and I suppose that relates to my earlier comments. I think it was 80 million to do the 1.5 kilometre circuit there, and it's taking forever. Would it be more sensible for the council to move the whole of the Wynyard Quarter into the responsibility of Pānuku?
That's an interesting and pointed question. I think, to be perfectly honest, when it comes to transport, that is something that should firmly live with the transport business. We're not transport operators, we're not transport planners, and I believe that we have a transport organisation that is absolutely fit for purpose for that. It's fair to say that we need to be a little bit more coordinated, and at the same time, I think we need to identify very clearly what the term urban regeneration really does mean, and where the position lies with us to deliver product, and where transportation take over and deliver their product. But I've got no aspirations to step into their space. I think it would be inappropriate, and I think it would end up with a whole mishmash of disasters.
Thank you very much for that. Transport, I fully agree with you. I'm concerned about non-transport construction and development, rain gardens, footpaths, stuff that really is placemaking. And it seems to me a more integrated approach, and you almost concede that, is desirable. Is there anything the council can do to assist the integration that you think is needed, better integration?
I think we're on a journey, to be quite honest. And one of the things that I've inherited with Pānuku is the opportunity that we've historically done the public realm, and we've supported and we've facilitated development across the regions. The step change that we're looking to take now is where we become a partner, a true partner in terms of the development outputs, and that only in those areas where we can significantly add value. And to be quite honest, in the Wynyard Quarter zone, we are not needed to regenerate that area. We need to facilitate the private sector in terms of delivering the outcomes, and we will support with the delivery of the public realm, and we'll support with the placemaking. But if we move to some of the more challenging areas, the Onehangers and the Manukau's of this world, then I think we have a much, much larger role to facilitate.
Thank you for that. And can I say again, thank you for your initiative in attempting to come up with solutions that would use this council's enormous critical mass and buying power to affect changes in the construction sector. If we can't do it, who can? We have critical mass. We need not be a helpless giant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpson, last question.
Yes, Councillor Lee has actually, I think, articulated very clearly my kind of thoughts. So congratulations, but you don't have to answer this now. I think there's obviously some concern around Auckland Transport. I think as governors, we can help with that. So maybe we can have a discussion offline how we can help that, whether it further through our statement of intents or letters of expectation or something, because we just need to make sure that, we make it easier for you.
Yeah. No, I would welcome that support. I mean, certainly there is some grey areas, particularly around transportation hubs. And if we are the elected regeneration party, then we should be able to deal in those areas as well.
Yeah, so I think we just need to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Good news on the housing.
Very good. Well done.